Imagine being told 5 years ago that a girl from Pasig City in the Philippines would walk into the Porsche Arena in Stuttgart and stand across the net from the four best tennis players on the planet. You would have laughed. You would have said that country has never produced anything close to a world-class tennis star, and you would have been right at the time. But here we are in April 2026, and Alexandra Eala is about to do exactly that, stepping into one of the most loaded WTA 500 draws in recent memory, not through qualifying, not through some lucky draw, but through the kind of twist that makes you believe the tennis gods are paying attention. Let me take you through how we got here, because the story behind the Stuttgart entry is far stranger and far more dramatic than any headline can capture. It starts with an injury. Qinwen Zheng, the Olympic champion, pulls out of Stuttgart. She is dealing with a lingering physical issue, and the announcement comes just days before the tournament begins. That withdrawal triggers a chain reaction in the entry list. Someone has to fill that spot. And the name sitting at the very top of the alternate list, the next player in line, happens to be a 20-year-old from the Philippines who has already turned this season into the most significant in the history of her country's tennis. Alex Eala goes from facing the pressure of the qualifying rounds to walking straight into the main draw. No extra matches to drain her legs. No grueling qualifiers on clay she is still adjusting to. Just a clean, direct path into a field that includes Aryna Sabalenka, Elena Rybakina, Coco Gauff, and Iga Swiatek. All four of the world's top-ranked players in a single 28-player draw. Now, some people will look at this and say she got lucky. And sure, the withdrawal of Zheng is a fortunate break. But luck does not explain why Eala was next in line. Luck does not explain why she is ranked high enough to be the first alternate. That position was earned through 12 months of relentless climbing, through wins that shocked the establishment, through a trajectory that has gone from curiosity to genuine contention. Rewind to just last year. March 2025. The Miami Open. Eala enters the tournament as a wild card. She is ranked outside the top 70. Nobody outside of Filipino tennis fans is paying close attention. And then she starts winning. She beats Katie Volinets in the first round. She takes down Elena Ostapenko in the second. She pushes through the draw with increasing confidence until she reaches the quarterfinals and finds herself staring across the net at the second seed, Iga Swiatek, a five-time Grand Slam champion. Arguably the most dominant clay court player of her generation and a force on hard courts as well. Eala wins in straight sets. 6-2, 7-5. She comes from 4-2 down in the second set and never blinks. At 19 years old, in only her second full year on the tour, she dismantles one of the titans of the sport. She then pushes Jessica Pegula, the world number 4, to 3 sets in the semifinals before finally falling. That run put the entire tennis world on notice. This was not a fluke. This was a player arriving. The 2026 season has been a continuation of that arrival, though with the kind of bumps and fluctuations that remind you she is still only 20. She opened the year with a semifinal run at the ASB Classic in Auckland. Then came the Australian Open, where she fell in the first round to Alicia Parks. An early exit in Qatar. But then Dubai happened. Eala walked into the Dubai Duty-Free Tennis Championships and delivered a performance that cemented her as a genuine threat. She knocked out Jasmine Paolini, the world number 8, in the second round with a scoreline of 6-1, 7-6. That was her third career top 10 victory. She followed that up by beating Aryna Sabalenka to reach the quarterfinals, where she eventually fell to Coco Gauff. But the damage was done, not to Eala, but to the field's perception of her. After Dubai, she climbed to a career-high ranking of number 31. A week later, she cracked 29. The first Filipino player, man or woman, ever to sit inside the top 30 of the world rankings. Then came Indian Wells. A round of 16 finish. Then Miami 2026, where she returned to the site of her breakthrough and reached the round of 16 again before a brutal loss to Karolina Muchova, 6-0, 6-2. That defeat stung. It was the kind of scoreline that can shake a young player's confidence, a reminder that the margin between brilliance and humiliation on the WTA Tour is razor thin. Her ranking slipped back to 46. The whispers started. Maybe the hard-court swing had taken too much out of her. Maybe the transition to clay, a surface she has historically struggled on, would expose her weaknesses. And this is where the Stuttgart story becomes fascinating. Because the narrative around Eala and clay is not a simple one. Her career record on the surface is, frankly, mediocre. Go back through the numbers. In 2021, she managed a 5-4 record. In 2022, 1-2. In 2023, she lost all 3 of her clay court matches. In 2024, she won just 3 out of 9. Last year, only 2 wins from 6 matches, including a first-round exit at her debut French Open. The red dirt has not been kind to her. Her game, built around explosive shot-making, aggressive returns, and a willingness to take the ball early, does not naturally translate to a surface that rewards patience, heavy topspin, and long rallies. On clay, the ball sits up more. Points last longer. You cannot blast your way through matches the way you can on hard courts. The geometry changes. The movement changes. Everything slows down just enough to punish anyone who cannot adapt. Eala knows this. Her team knows this. And that is exactly why, in the brief window between the end of the hard court season and the start of the clay swing, she flew back to Mallorca. Back to the Rafa Nadal Academy. Back to the place where she has trained since she was 13 years old, when she left the Philippines as a teenager to pursue an impossible dream on the other side of the world. She spent a week there, working on the indoor clay courts under the watchful eye of none other than Toni Nadal, the man who shaped Rafael Nadal into the greatest clay court player in the history of tennis. Think about that for a moment. A young woman from Manila, training under the uncle of the king of clay, on the very courts where Rafael Nadal honed his craft. If you are going to learn how to play on dirt, there is no better classroom on earth. Eala spoke about the experience with genuine warmth. She talked about working on feeling the ball differently on clay, about movement patterns, about being able to slide into shots and recover quickly. She said she felt like she was moving better than last year. She described having Toni Nadal as part of her coaching team as a blessing, someone whose knowledge and experience are simply unmatched. There was an ease in the way she talked about it, a confidence that suggested she was not approaching the clay season with dread, but with purpose. Her first test came at the Linz Open in Austria, a WTA 500 event played on indoor clay, conditions that mirror what she will face in Stuttgart. She dispatched Julia Grabher in the first round, 6-4, 6-3, a clean and composed performance that suggested the training in Mallorca was paying off. Then came Ostapenko, the 4th seed, a former French Open champion, a player Eala had beaten twice before on hard courts. But clay is a different animal, and Ostapenko on clay is a different player entirely. This is the woman who won Stuttgart just last year, bulldozing through Swiatek and Sabalenka to lift the trophy. Eala came out swinging. She took the first set to 4-6, losing it narrowly but showing she belonged. Then she surged in the second. She built a 5-1 lead. 5-1. She was 2 points away from forcing a decider. And then something shifted. Ostapenko, a player who lives and dies by her aggression, decided she had nothing to lose and started swinging even harder. She found lines. She hit winners from positions that should have been defensive. She clawed back to 5-5, then 6-5, and then 7-5. Match over. Eala stood at the net, shaking hands, absorbing one of those losses that leaves a mark. Leading 5-1 and losing the set. That is the kind of collapse that can haunt a player for weeks if they let it. But here is the thing about Eala. She does not let it. She never has. Go back to that Miami run in 2025. She was down 4-2 in the second set against Swiatek and fought her way back to win. She has been in tight situations against top 10 players and found a way. The Linz loss to Ostapenko will sting, there is no avoiding that. But it also provided something invaluable, information. She now knows exactly where her clay game stands. She knows she can compete with a former Roland Garros champion on the surface. She knows her movement has improved. She knows her ball striking translates. What she needs to fix is the mental fortitude to close out sets when she has the lead, to not allow the intensity to dip when she is ahead, to maintain the ruthless focus that defines the best clay court players. And now she walks into Stuttgart with all of that knowledge, plus the enormous advantage of not having to play qualifying. That is a significant edge in a tournament like this. The Porsche Tennis Grand Prix is played on indoor clay inside the Porsche Arena, a venue that adds speed to the clay surface compared to outdoor tournaments. The ball comes through faster. Serves are more effective. Aggressive players tend to have more success here than at, say, the French Open. That profile suits Eala perfectly. Her game, even on clay, is built on taking the initiative. She wants to dictate. She wants to move forward. She wants to hurt opponents with the depth and pace of her ground strokes. Indoor clay might actually be the most favorable clay court environment she could ask for. The field around her is, of course, stacked. Sabalenka has been the dominant force in women's tennis for the better part of 2 years. Rybakina's serve and forehand are weapons that can overwhelm anyone on any surface. Swiatek on clay remains the benchmark, even when her form fluctuates. Gauff brings athleticism and improving tactical awareness. Then there are the dangerous floaters, Mira Andreeva, the teenage prodigy who plays with fearless abandon. Karolina Muchova, the same woman who demolished Eala in Miami just weeks ago. Barbara Krejcikova, a former French Open champion who knows clay better than most. Elena Ostapenko, the defending champion, fresh off that comeback win over Eala in Linz. Emma Navarro, Leylah Fernandez, Elise Mertens. Every match will be a battle. But that is exactly the kind of environment where Eala thrives. She has always played her best tennis against players ranked above her. Her record against top 10 opponents includes wins over Swiatek, Paolini, and others. She is not a player who wilts under the bright lights. If anything, the spotlight seems to fuel her. There is something about her competitive DNA that comes alive when the stakes are highest. Maybe it comes from growing up as the sole standard-bearer for an entire country's tennis ambitions. Maybe it comes from the years of sacrifice, leaving home at 13, living and training in a foreign country, balancing education with the brutal demands of professional tennis. Whatever the source, Eala plays with a freedom that belies her age and the pressure she carries. The tactical question for Stuttgart is fascinating. On indoor clay, Eala's best strategy will likely involve using her aggressive return game to pressure opponents' service games early. She has shown an ability to read serves well and take the return early, robbing opponents of time. If she can break early in sets, she can dictate the tempo and force her opponents to play from behind, which is where the slower clay surface can actually work in her favor. A player chasing the match on clay tends to overhit, to go for too much, to force errors. Eala's job will be to create that dynamic and then manage it, something she failed to do against Ostapenko, but has done brilliantly against higher-ranked opponents in the past. Her serve, while not a dominant weapon, has improved steadily. She is placing it better, varying the spin, and using the wide serve effectively to open up the court. On indoor clay, where the surface does not neutralize pace as much as outdoor clay, that serve can set up her forehand, which remains her best shot. When Eala's forehand is firing, it carries genuine weight. She can flatten it out for winners or roll it with topspin to push opponents behind the baseline. The key variable, as always, will be her movement. Clay demands a different kind of footwork. The slide into shots, the recovery, the ability to change direction on loose footing. It is a skill that takes years to fully develop, and Eala is still in the early stages of building that comfort level. What makes this Stuttgart entry so compelling is the timing. Eala is at a crossroads in her career. She has proven she can hang with the best on hard courts. She has the ranking, the wins, and the experience to back it up. But clay has been the gap in her resume. If she can put together a strong showing in Stuttgart, it would signal a new phase in her development. It would transform her from a hard-court specialist with clay court limitations into a genuine all-surface threat. And with the French Open looming in late May, the stakes could not be higher. A deep run in Stuttgart would not only boost her ranking back toward the top 30, but also give her the confidence and match practice she needs to make a real impact at Roland Garros. There is also the broader significance of what Eala represents. She is the first Filipino player to reach the top 30. The first to win a junior Grand Slam singles title, which she did at the 2022 US Open. She carries the hopes of an entire nation that has never had a presence in professional tennis at this level. Every match she plays is broadcast across the Philippines. Every win is front-page news. Every loss is dissected by millions of fans who have adopted her as a national hero. That kind of pressure can crush young athletes. It has crushed many. But Eala seems to draw energy from it rather than being burdened by it. She has spoken about the responsibility she feels and her desire to inspire young Filipinos to pick up a racket. That sense of purpose adds a dimension to her tennis that goes beyond rankings and prize money. Stuttgart will be a test. There is no way around that. The field is too strong and the surface too unfamiliar for anyone to expect a cakewalk. But the beauty of Eala's career so far is that she has consistently exceeded expectations. Nobody expected her to reach the semifinals in Miami as a wild card. Nobody expected her to beat Swiatek. Nobody expected her to crack the top 30. The pattern is clear. Underestimate Alex Eala at your own risk. When she steps onto the indoor clay of the Porsche Arena next week, she will carry all of it with her. The lessons from Mallorca and Toni Nadal. The sting of blowing a 5-1 lead in Linz. The memory of walking off the court in Miami with the crowd chanting her name. The quiet determination of a young woman who left everything behind at 13 to chase a dream that no one from her country had ever achieved. She is not the favorite in Stuttgart. She is not even close. But the best stories in tennis rarely belong to the favorites. They belong to the players who refuse to accept the limits that others try to place on them. And if there is one thing Alex Eala has proven, over and over again, it is that she does not recognize limits. Not the ones defined by geography. Not the ones defined by rankings. Not the ones defined by surface. Stuttgart has no idea what is coming. And, honestly, neither do we. That is what makes this so thrilling. That is what makes watching Alex Eala, right now, at this exact moment in her career, one of the most captivating experiences in all of tennis. Whatever happens next week, remember this moment. Remember when she was the alternate who slipped into the draw because an Olympic champion got injured. Remember when nobody gave her a chance. Because if this young woman's career has taught us anything, it is that those are precisely the moments when she is most dangerous.